by the Committee on the Guam. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. We just started this public hearing. This public hearing, sponsored by the Committee on the Guam U.S. Military Relocation, Public Safety, Judiciary, is hereby convened. And if I can ask everyone in the audience, should you have your cell phones on, to please ensure that they are either placed in the silent mode or they are turned off for the duration of this hearing. And if you do need to take a phone call or make a phone call, please exit the public hearing room. I'd like to, first of all, start off by stating that this particular public hearing we will be discussing two particular legislations. Bill number 229-33, which is relative to the temporary employment of retired conservation officers within the Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources of the Department of Agriculture should a critical need arise due to military activation or long-term disability. Also, the second bill that will be discussed is Bill number 236-33 LS, relative to the possession of firearms by aliens, and introduced by the Honorable Senator V.A. Ada, who's to my immediate left. For purposes of public notification, the initial notification was disseminated to all the stakeholders as well as to our media partners on the 20th of January, and then the secondary notice was distributed on the 25th of January, in compliance with the Open Government Notification Act. I'd like to also recognize Senator Tony Ada, who's joined us this afternoon. Thank you very much, Senator, for joining us for this particular public hearing. We will proceed with discussion on the first piece of legislation, Bill number 229-33. And we have the following individuals who have signed up, and if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to join us and provide testimony, you're more than welcome to join us up front. Please ensure that you do sign in. Can I invite Mr. Mark Aguon from the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Matt Sablon, the Director of Department of Agriculture, and Ms. Tony Santos. Please, if you can all join us up front. And for purposes of opening comments with regards to Bill number 229-33, I believe the title is self-explanatory. There's a provision that applies directly to other law enforcement agencies, the Guam Police Department, the Department of Corrections, as well as the Guam Fire Department, that should there be any military activation or extended illness with any of our law enforcement public safety officers, that flexibility is provided for these particular law enforcement agencies to be able to temporarily hire retired personnel, law enforcement personnel, respective to their agencies. And this flexibility right now, based on 229, could become applicable to Department of Agriculture as it applies to conservation officers. So I'd like to recognize, first of all, the Director, Mr. Sablon. If you can go ahead and identify yourself for the record, ensure the mic is on, and provide your testimony. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senator Ada. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity today to testify in support of Bill 229-33 COR. I did pass out the handouts, but I'm just going to make it a brief accordingly to the written statement. With what's stated there in the Act, the measure is in the event for deployment or emergency leave of shortage of manpower, that this bill will authorize us the hiring of retirees. Currently, we have 10 conservation officers, and recently we have one, Lieutenant Mike Regis, retired. That brings us down to 9. And then we have one under administrative duty, so down to 8. Out of the 8, in about a couple of months, we're going to lose 3 to deployment. And that, of course, leaves us with 5. The challenge there is 5. As far as island-wide protection of our wildlife and marine and natural resources. So with that, I know there's a program that, and I guess Sergeant Mark Aguon will elaborate more on that, with GCC, the belay program, where they are already certified post, and that's one avenue we can quickly identify qualified to augment our shortage. To end that, I just again want to thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. Can I yield to Mr. Ogun? Please identify yourself for the record.
Sergeant Mark, I'm the acting OIC for the Law Enforcement Section, Department of Agriculture. Yes, I support the bill, although I think it needs to indicate that and grant us permission to pick up LTEs or LTAs for the purpose of the pool that we are to choose from. If it just stays this way, we may have just one candidate. The other candidates that have retired may not be willing or able to come back to work with us because they've retired several years ago, and for other reasons. But if you allow for the department to visit the LTE or LTA area, we have a pool of officers that have been certified through BLEA with GCC and are post-certified and can take the post-certification entry level exams with DOA if need be. So that's what I am in support of the bill, although I believe it needs to be added on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Ogun. Ms. Santos, did you want to provide any comments?
Thank you, Senator. Well, I'm only here simply because of the funding situation. And right now, with the lapse funds due to the retirement of Conservation Officer 3, we do anticipate hiring at least 3 recruits. I mean, I'm looking at recruits because it's a lower entry level, and with the lapse funds that we have with the Conservation Officer 3, that will be sufficient to cover through September. Well, I'm looking at April through September because of the processing and all these things that have to happen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Santos. Mr. Director, if I can just pose a general question and either yourself or Ms. Santos can respond. First and foremost, thank you very much for providing the numbers, because I think the numbers are going to justify either providing the agency flexibility or allowing the agency to be able to go out and recruit either trainees or LTAs for these particular positions. Because you said you presently are authorized 10 positions, of which due to a retiree you are brought down to 9. And you have one individual who's reassigned elsewhere only because of a personal situation, a disability, just
Correct.
so that our people don't get the wrong impression. And then you very shortly, in a few months, will be losing 3 individuals as a result of military activation. So that would bring you down to an active force of 5. So you're literally going to be 50% at your man strength or personnel strength with the conservation officer. So that, first and foremost, I think it poses a somewhat a dire situation in terms of making sure that you have the manpower and the personnel, at least at the level that you are authorized with this existing budget. So that's one aspect. Ms. Santos, I know you said that you're looking at rehiring 3 recruits. Is that through the LTA process, or is that a permanent recruitment?
LTA process.
Okay, and that's recognizing that it's on a temporary basis.
Exactly.
During the course of the activation, the funds are going to be offset by virtue of these individuals being deployed elsewhere.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. Any other comments, Senator Adam? Senator Torres? Thank you very much, Senator, for joining us this afternoon.
The question that I had about the bill is, I noticed that it contemplates them double dipping, right? They come from a retirement status into an active status, but they maintain their retirement benefits and everything, right? So it's a double dipping scenario. But I was a little confused about the leave. They can maintain. The bill requires that they have. They're entitled to take the medical insurance plan as an active status, as opposed to retired. But they're not allowed to accrue sick and annual leave. And I was unclear. And maybe that is better directed to the author, or do you have any thoughts on that part of the bill?
The way the, if I may.
Yeah, the status.
The
It
way,
was just a little
yes. The way the
peculiar.
system is applied in other law enforcement agencies is that very similar to our LC2 status personnel, where individuals here in the legislature, where individuals are able to be pulled in and are only paid specifically on a quasi-contractual basis to be able to backfill any needed vacancies. And keep in mind that this is only based on two particular categories. One is military activation, as well as extended long-term illness of any law enforcement personnel. So that's more or less. So there's no additional benefits, whether it be accrued leave, annual leave, or sick leave, and there's really no additional benefits with the exception of that individual being brought in with a slight possibility, and I need a clarification in terms of how Department of Administration is administering it, but a slight possibility of contributing to Social Security. But that I still need clarification.
But then going back to the other issue with, it's unclear why we would need to specifically provide in the law that if you're under a retirement status and you can subscribe to the medical government plan, that's one thing, because it's contemplated that they're going into this position on a limited term on an as-needed basis to fill a void, right, as a result of deployment or illness or so. Why wouldn't you then just have them maintain their medical status as retired? Why would you mandate that they switch over to an active status for medical plan? That part just I didn't understand the logic of that. Did you see that part, or either
Well,
one? What is
Senator,
the advantage to you?
Well, this is like, for example, military retirees. They come into the government of Guam as a full-time employee, but they don't opt for any insurance because they're still covered by military. So we don't pay medical or dental insurance for them. So it would be the same thing as the retirees coming back. They can still stay within their current retirement status with health insurance, and they don't have to offer any medical or dental.
I'm going to look at the bill because I read it differently.
What the Ms. Santos, line 19 and 20, what the good senator is referring to is the provision that reads, any employee hired under this section shall only be eligible to enroll the Government of Guam Health Insurance Program as an active employee. And that's a standard language where this individual will not necessarily be classified as an active employee, but placed on a quasi-contractual basis. So if that is a concern, then we'll seek legal counsel advice whether in fact they would recommend that be extracted.
Yeah, because it's a little
Yeah.
it's a bit illogical, and that's why I wanted to just point that out. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. And Senator Frank Blas, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. There being Mr. Director or Ms. Santos or Sergeant Aguon, if there's any final comments you would like to provide with regards to this?
Well, I guess Tony mentioned it, I can probably consider it the employee's choice. Or
Okay, we'll discuss it in terms of how DOA applies it across the board, because this language is the same language and template that is utilized for other law enforcement agencies. So if by any chance these employees would like to enroll in the GovGuam insurance and it allows them to enroll right now, then I don't know if we want to extract that benefit as a possibility when they're providing direct law enforcement public safety services to our people. Okay, another thing is just for the information of the Director, Department of Administration, unfortunately they were not able to send a representative, but they did submit written testimony to the committee. Okay? Yes, Sergeant Aguon?
Yes, with me closing, I just want to extend my sincere thank you from the bottom of our hearts from our section, because we're in dire needs of manpower right now. It's a very dangerous situation where we're heading into, and we need to avoid that right away.
Thank you very much,
Yes,
Sergeant
thank you.
Aguon. One final comment or question. I know that you're looking at 5 active full-time employees within a few months. What is the timeline that you need to be able to have this direct authorization? Only because, let's say, if in fact it's not placed on the agenda in February, it's not placed in March, but then you need the authorization by March, it doesn't make any sense to delay it any further. So what would be the timeline that you need this adopted and this flexibility provided so that in fact the agency can be able to apply it?
Only in April.
Yes, Senator, I believe starting February, out of the three, some of them will be going through pre-mold stages.
Okay.
So that requires them to be on military leave. Yeah.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Senator Adams? Or, I'm sorry, Senator Frank Blas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for my tardiness to the hearing. And I don't know whether this question has been asked and answered. I notice here it says retired conservation officer. Has there been a discussion about maybe expanding that to increase your pool of retirees to include maybe other areas of law enforcement that, that could possibly fit your requirement, your need?
We did not go outside the box as far as conservation officers, although we did venture into recruiting postgraduates from GCC, post-certified graduates from GCC Balea course that have done internship with us already.
Okay.
So they're like a new pool of officers that may potentially come into the government.
So you're not adverse to possibly expanding this pool?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, and early we did request addition to the language to avail the GCC Balea program.
But I'm also looking at maybe availing it to, other officers retired from the other service.
That is an option. Right now, that's the way. There is an option there.
Well, because here it just says retired conservation officer.
I have not discussed that at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blas, and thank you very much, everyone, for your testimony this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be proceeding to the next legislation that's on the agenda, and that is sponsored by Senator Tony Ada, and it's an act relative to possession of firearms by aliens, Bill number 236-33. Before I recognize the good senator to provide his description of the legislation, I'd like to invite the following individuals to join us up front, please. Johnny Kerr, David Anderson, Albert Silos, and Scott Wade. Once again, if by any chance you would like to join us or provide testimony, I'd like to invite the following individuals: Johnny Kerr, Daniel Anderson, Albert Silas, and Scott Wade to join us up front. Senator Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, what Bill 236-33 does is actually it removes the restriction on firearm IDs for permanent resident aliens. And it was introduced to make Guam firearms possession laws constitutional. As you know, many state and local federal courts have struck down laws that deny permanent resident aliens Second Amendment rights. And as you know, permanent residency is that final step until an individual actually becomes a naturalized citizen. And just to simply put it, those with green cards will be eligible for firearms ID. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Abbott.
My name is Albert Silos. I've been a resident of Guam for over 40 years. I am a citizen of the United States, and I own a firearm. I have been issued a firearm ID concealed since 1982. Okay. I would like to testify in favor of this bill, and we are facing two issues on this bill. One is the issuance of IDs to representatives of foreign government, and the second one is issuance of permits to or license to permanent resident aliens or green card holder. First, I would like to touch on the representatives of foreign government. Several years ago, I got a call from the Consul General of the Philippines telling me that he went to the Guam Police Department and he was told by the people at the department that he had to undergo he had to submit to some requirements. One of them was like their fingerprinting and all those checks. So I called one of the majors from the police department, and I asked why was this a requirement made, because generally officials of foreign government that are assigned to the United States go through a background check by the United States State Department before they can assume their new positions. So the major told me, I think there was just a misunderstanding with the people downstairs. So the major asked me to have the consul general go and meet him, and they then issued him a license. So I don't want a case like that to happen again, because if these people are cleared by the U.S. State Department, who are we to question the capacity of the State Department in checking the background of these people? So I am in favor of this one. Okay. The next one is the issuance of firearm IDs to permanent resident aliens or green card holders. As far as I know, there is no law in Guam which mandates the issuance of firearm license only to citizens of the United States. Years ago, I don't know how it got into the books. It was a requirement by applicants to be a U.S. citizen. That requirement was challenged in court, and it was then ruled unconstitutional by Judge Abate. Okay? After the ruling of Judge Abate, that requirement was taken out of the application form for the police. Later on, when Earl Aguigui became chief of police, he put that requirement back, not through law, but by general order of the police. From my understanding, the general order for the police department only affects members of the police department, not the general public. Okay? There was no public hearing, there was no AAA, no nothing at all. It was mandated only by the chief of police. Okay? So, a lot of people who were green card holders that were issued firearm IDs during that interval from the ruling of Judge Abate to the assumption of Earl Aguigui as chief of police, got their IDs through legal means. Okay? After the ruling came back, and some of them tried to renew their firearm IDs because of the general order of Chief Aguigui, they were told that they could not renew their license anymore. They got their license in good faith. Now, what happened was the general order of Aguigui made them become a felon, okay? Because they were in possession of firearms which were legally acquired through their license during that break period, but later on they were being denied renewal. So from a misdemeanor now they became felons. So what these people had to do, they had to give their firearms to the legally licensed individuals for safekeeping while they are in limbo. Okay? So I am now in favor of testifying in favor of this bill to give this green card holder the right to get their firearm IDs again. In the United States, most of the states, especially like Arizona, Nevada, and Arizona does not even require a firearm ID. You just go to the store, pay for the firearm, show your driver's license, you walk out of the store with a firearm. But that is only for long rifles, okay? Rifles or shotguns. And pistol, they have the waiting period of the 7-day waiting period. So I would like this bill to go through so those people that are in limbo right now who acquired their firearms legally will now be given the chance to come in and renew their license. So there are two issues, the consular officials and the permanent resident alien. Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silos, for your testimony this afternoon. Mr. Officer Wade.
What and Hafiday Senators, members of the Committee of the U.S. Military Relocation, Public Safety, and Judiciary. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to testify in support of Bill 23633 LS. I am Lieutenant Scott Wade of the Guam Police Department Legal Affairs Section. The Chief of Police regrets he cannot attend today, as his presence is required at a previously scheduled event. After review of the proposed Bill number 23633 ALS, an act to amend subsection 60108B2 and 60109.1A1 of Chapter 60, Title 10 GCA relative to the possession of firearms by aliens, the Guam Police Department is in support of the proposed amendments, which would include into the current statute and specifically define what category or classifications of aliens is permitted to apply for and obtain a Guam Firearms and Guam Concealed Firearms identification card. This amendment follows federal statutes that similarly cover the issue of legal possession of a firearm by aliens. It better reflects the intent of the federal statute, and we agree with the definition and language of the proposed amendments. This amendment would assist our department in vetting firearm applications and differentiating between permanent resident aliens and non-eligible aliens as defined by the Immigration and Nationality Law Act of 1965. Thank you for allowing our department to submit our testimony in support of Bill 23633 LS.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Wade, and thank the Chief, please, for participating in this particular discussion and providing the position of the department. Senator Adams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank them both for coming here to testify in support of the Bill 236. It was just brought, we do have one amendment that we'll be making, and that's the section. It'll be 60109.1B instead of A.
Okay.
So just for clarification and ensure that that correction will be made. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Senators, any questions or comments on the proposal? Senator Torres, you're recognized.
Officer Wade, I was wondering with regard to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, the NICS system. Do you feel that this bill substantially satisfies that requirement, that federal requirement for ID? And I think it's an ICE-issued ID. Or is there something more that you think needs to be addressed in this bill? Because it calls for a green card.
From my understanding of the bill and the current process for obtaining a firearms ID, individuals that apply will still be vetted through the practice that we do now, which is obtaining a fingerprint identification, a verification. They're also run through the NCIC, National Criminal Information System Network, to verify any arrests or issues in any of the states. So they would, from my understanding, the permanent resident aliens that apply would still be vetted through the same process as U.S. citizens or anybody else applying for a firearms ID on Guam.
Okay, and then in your estimate, this pretty much is in conformance with the recent executive order by Obama, right, with regard to background checks and that sort of thing. I mean, it'll all things will fall into play with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The process would still be the same for permanent resident aliens and U.S. citizens.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Torres. And Lieutenant Wade and Mr. Silos, thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon, and thank you, Senators, for joining us. This concludes our discussion and the public hearing on Bill number 229-33 and Bill number 236-33. The committee will continue to accept written testimony for the subsequent 10 days following this particular hearing, and then the committee report will be provided and closed out for consideration by the entire legislature. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good day.
Thank you.